Hello, everybody. My name is Greg Walsh. I'm an architect and member of the SCI-Arc faculty. A lot of you know me, some of you don't, but by the time I get done with this endless introduction, you will know everything. No, it's not going to be endless, I promise. If it is, just start yelling after 5 minutes or 10 minutes, whatever. Welcome to another in the lecture series sponsored jointly by the French Cultural Center and our own Museum of Contemporary Art. Features several prominent French architects discussing their recent work. The next one, I was told I had to plug the next one, not that it doesn't deserve it, will be at the Museum of Contemporary Art at 2 p.m. Sunday, October 25th. Patrick Berger and Ibos Vitart will speak. At least since the Renaissance, French culture has placed great emphasis on designing the built environment, and they've mostly been willing to pay for it. Tradition, most recently, of Mitterrand's Grand projects, and two of our lecture architects, Jean Nouvel and Christian Porzenpark, have participated in this program. But tonight, our speakers from the succeeding generation are also beneficiaries of a current wave of important projects, participants, winners of several major competitions, and other work, these competitions being sponsored by the French government. Both offices are located in Paris, and all three speakers have worked formerly with Jean Nouvel, and two of them have worked, this is the connection with me, I guess, with Frank Gehry. They have all graciously consented to speak in English, which they tell me is as hard to do for them as speaking in French might be for some of us. So we should be very grateful. Since there are two firms represented tonight, immediately after the first presentation, we'll be introducing the second speaker. There will be no break between the two presentations. Our first speaker, Jean-Marc Ibos, and his partner Myrto Vitart, have been in practice since 1989. I briefly knew Jean-Marc before that. He worked, as I said, at Frank Gehry's office in 1983 or 4. And this was cut short by a phone call from Jean Nouvel to come back. We have a project in Paris, so naturally he left, as any self-respecting architect might. In 1998, Ibos and Vitart won the prestigious Dupont Benedictus Award. And in 1997, their completed Fine Arts Museum in the city of Lille in France won France's Best Building of the Year award. It's my pleasure now to introduce to you and give them a rousing hand, because there's lots of people, we can make lots of noise, Jean-Marc Ibos and Myrto Vitart.
Good evening. Thanks for your welcome. I must say, when we arrive here in Los Angeles, coming from France, which is one of the most conservative country of Europe, we feel just arriving a feeling of freedom, a quite agreeable feeling of freedom. In our country, space is closed. Everything is thought, everything is organized and determined. So much people, or so many people, is thinking every time to everything. So that, for example, when we arrive in a project, a lot of things, it's okay, thank you. A lot of things are still are already decided. Oh. So,
Hollywood.
pardon?
Hollywood.
No, could you please cut the light? Ah, d'accord, that doesn't mind. What I was saying, I don't remember. Yes, in our country, we have formal language, we have composition rules for so long time that it could be like a second nature to prove the I'm looking for my word, to prove the arbitrary of that vision is quite difficult because it seems to anyone so natural, that way of looking. In our world made of discontinuity, in France we're still looking for an improbable stability and for an illusory whole harmony, so that little by little our cities are cut from reality. What is our own interest is precisely reality. We like healthy, santé, en bonne santé, healthy cities. We like moving cities. We like when life prend le devant.
Takes its course.
When life leads on representations, on peut dire ça, quand la vie prend le pas sur la représentation. When representation, I would say, would concord with our way, with our present preoccupations.
I would like to complete what Myrto is saying. There is one thing you must know in France, is the fact that everything is public. Health, transportation, energy, education, all is public. All. I'm not guilty. No. It means that all the things you can do in France are always based, and very often based, on a sort of abstract vision imposed by the political power. And another thing you must know in France, it's about the way you obtain commission. In France, you obtain commission with a competition. So what the architects do in France, all the architects are always competing, always. And in fact, this competition are a sort of relay to impose one way of thinking. And quel que soit, whatever the situation, to solve a problem, if you are in the center of a city, or you are in a field with nothing around, like in a desert, the demand in France is always the same. The demand is to create continuity, to create unity. And faced with this situation, what we like is to take in account the things, but to take in account the things in their particularities. What we like is to take in account the reality, without trying to do a sort of globalization, without trying to fit the things in a theory. In this context, which is very difficult, in fact, when we have a different project, it's not due to a political will to take a cultural risk. It's more often due to a sort of incapacity or incompetence of the politics. Qui ne comprennent pas. Who don't understand the things we proposed. Yeah, I think it's the reason why when we win a competition, for us at the office, it's like a miracle. And now I would like to present you a few miracles.
First one.
First miracle.
Yeah. This is a cultural center, a black box in a black parking. Cultural center in Saint-Herblain, which is a city, a little city near Nantes in the west of France. This, alors comment ça marche, machin? Could you tell me how I pass from here?
Mets-toi la lumière.
Ça, non?
Reviens.
Well, this city had some particularity, which is it has no center. And in France, a city without center is not a city. So everybody was very sad, and the mayor decided to build the center. In the geographical center of this city, he built a new center. But the geographical center of this city was a field with cause, nothing, just an empty field. And so he had to build everything. As he had not much money, he asked for commercial areas to implant there. And as commercial areas needed parking place, the center of the center, the center of the center became a parking place. In France, in the center of a city, you have always cultural institutions, so that the mayor decided then to project a cultural center. And that's why you find here the cultural center of Saint-Herblain. It was a competition we won about 10 years ago, a little bit more. And in the program, it was said, well, our land was here. And in the program, it was said that we should enter to the center by the parking, but after we should forget the parking and turn our vision on the park, on the park? Comment, to the lake and the future park. We refused that kind of discrimination with a bad place and a good place, a back and a behind. Well, and we decided that, we told that the parking would be a negative place if he was looked like a negative place, but if he was understood like something positive, it could become positive. The parking was big when we arrived. It was something like that. We made it bigger. We prolonged the parking, we closed the triangle, we made it fall into the water. So we have réuni, comment on dit? Réunir, join the two systems, the paradise and l'enfer. Hell. And we implanted the cultural center into the parking, in the middle of the parking, because we thought a cultural center was much better in an artificial system than in a natural park. After, we tried to see how we could make so little building count in the paysage, in the landscape. We decided to make this cultural center as different as possible of the surroundings buildings. Every building around was very huge. We make the cultural center as little as possible. If we had money, we could have done a sphere, but it was much more easy to do like a cube. So it's a form the most compact possible. As the surrounding buildings were very colorated, we decided to make the cultural center all black, with no sign, nothing which would tell you anything. You see here, it's a building made by Richard Rogers, magasin d'usine. I don't know how would you say that?
It's a warehouse.
It's a factory.
A
Factory.
factory. So you can buy something there. This is the entrance. Even the entrance is not seen for when you arrive. You must turn around the building to find the entrance. When you arrive at the parking, you see just a black box, a magic black box. The entrance. It was also a way for us to make, montrer, to show that culture couldn't be assimilated to a business building. You understand? We wanted to make that kind of difference. This is a detail of the building which shows you a black wall, black concrete wall, and devant, qui est entouré devant, in front, you have a grid, a metallic grid. This metallic grid allows us to make to cacher, comment dire, to hide everything who could gives you any indication of the scale of the building. You don't see, because of this grid, you don't see any door, any window. You see no reference to any kind of échelle, scale. So when you are in front of the grid, you see the transparencies. Here, for example, you see the hall, and further away, again the parking. But when you are turning around, you don't see anything. Because of the thickness of the grid, you see nothing. You see just, for example, the light when light comes in. And here again, you are in frontal view, so you see the transparencies in the hall. You may see also the reflection of the colored signs on the commercial buildings. Here, for example, you see the M of the McDonald's. The hall. The plan is very simple. It's a quite cheap building, very simple built. Not any prouesse, comme on dit, technical prowess. Everything is very direct, very simple. You enter here, the hall, and two scales. The two scales make you accede to the auditorium here. Accede.
Stairs, right?
Stairs, yes. And the stage of the auditorium is in connection with the parking here. And the entrance of the building is here, also in connection with the parking, because you saw the parking was not horizontal. So you have two connections, the parking, and when you open the door here, the magic box allows outside spectacle. Please make it clear. Focus. Okay. Focus again. We are inside the auditorium. Ah. You should put some pile, how do you say, power, come on, batteries in your, well, it doesn't work anymore. Maybe the other one?
Actually, no?
Here it's underground. To make the cultural center the more literal possible, we did one underground floor, which receives lights from the peripheric. Please. Focus. So the night, please. Yeah. Could you make the focus, please? It's okay. So the parking, so the building appropriate itself the whole parking, and this building became then the center of the center.
Next. This project is a competition we do 3 years ago, and we are in Paris. I think you see the Eiffel Tower, the Montparnasse Tower, and there the great library of Dominique Leone. And on the edge of the river, on this side, you see the Ostery station there. It's the most important project in Paris around the Great Library. And the competition was on this site. It's about, I don't know, 40 hectares around. And the idea of the project was to build a new piece of city on this site. And because the mayor said it's not the city, the city doesn't exist on this site. And of course, we are in Paris along the river, and the city exists in this site. And, but it's a city which is different from the postcard. It's not the center, the historical center. It's with the railways and the waterways. It's clearly an industrial site, and the program of the competition was to build offices, apartments, factories, and so on. And we decided to use, in fact, to do this project, to use the qualities of project, to play with the vocation of the site, not to erase the existing, but to, in fact, reinforce the existing, to express the qualities of the site. Next, you see all plain. You have the library, you have the river, the district, the existing district in this part, and there the highway around Paris, which is in fact the limit between Paris and the outskirts. And for this project, we decided to throw pontons like the Santa Monica Pier or in England the Brighton Piers, to throw pontons on the site. Pontoons on the site, thank you. And to save the characteristic of the site. We keep on the side the industrial castle, the existing industrial castle, and along this ponton we put different type of construction in the logic of the installation of the old industrial castle. And it was also a strategy in terms of time and in terms of money, because you understand it's impossible to make more, I don't know, more 500,000 square feet in 5 years. And next, you see different views of the pontons and of the building. And next, and in the middle of the project, we propose to create a great park on the abandoned railways tracks. For us, it was a nature without constraints, a very free nature, reinforcing the contrast between the very mineral surrounding of the project. You see the ancient castle, industrial castle, and different type of construction along the pontons. Next. All the building is located along the pontons, and we create, in fact, 2 levels, a pedestrian level, another level on the ground, on the real ground, with cars and... c'est toi qui as appuyé?
Oui.
And the pontons, in fact, was the prolongation of the district network of the existing district network of the rest of the city in the south of it. Different views of the site, and at the end of the pontons, on and above the water, we think it was possible to create different places to walk or to drink, or with shops and so on, to see the river, to see the city, to have, in fact, a relation with the city. And with this ponton also, it was possible to have in-depth reading of the project. It was not just like a front on the river.
They didn't like at all our project.
We have lost.
Yeah, we have lost, but superbly. Superbement, comme on dit.
Superbly.
Superbly. They didn't like at all. They were waiting for a classical...
yes, a classical city, you know, like in the center of Paris, or like the Neos. They are waiting for a Neo-Osmanian city with blocks, with with alignements and with trees along the streets, and you can imagine this kind of urbanism. And the idea also with the pontons was to create a link with a thing which is very important in the site. It's the deck of the Great Library. You have a deck up at 9 meters height, and in fact the deck of the library creates create a sort of cut in the site. The library is like an island in the whole site,
At this moment, because
at this
after
moment,
it will change.
the idea of the project was also to create a relation with the existing library and the new district in this part. Next.
No. Voilà.
Right.
Some images from this little project, very funny. We lose also some years ago, which is a little church in La Défense. La Défense is a business district near Paris for businessmen, for des bureaux. And church people thought it was a good idea to put here a little church so that distressed businessman could make a break and go and have some place to prendre du retrait, to retreat. La Défense is a place where you have, I'll come back. You have pedestrian way, an pedestrian axis, which is very important. You have after that a medium-sized building, well, quite big, but not medium tall buildings. And after you have the towers. So our very little church, if we leave it on the floor here, it would seems like a kiosque à journaux, comment on pourrait dire?
Newspaper stand.
Newspaper stands or something very little on the parvis. So we didn't want that. We thought the church should not dominate the other buildings, but either be dominated. So we wanted to establish something like a natural position with that kind of buildings. So we put our church in 4 legs. They didn't like also. So, comment on passe? Please. Next. Our land, if you can say a land, because it's in fact a dalle, comment on dit dalle?
Slab.
A slab, yes. Was a very strange place here behind those one. It was not in front position in the pedestrian axis. So put it up authorized us also to have a view on that pedestrian axis, which was, we thought, important. Please? Please? Oui. No, here we are up. Here is where the entrance is. Here is the parvis. How we would say parvis? Terrace? The parvis. And this parvis authorized us to have a different point of view of La Défense in every direction, so that once more we have not a back and a front. We embraced all the landscape. Please. We tried this, the form of the church couldn't be too easily assimilated to a Cretan church, because it is a Cretan church, but they wanted to be able to accueillir, to invite everyone. So we wanted the form of our church could leave free interpretation to anyone and not to be too much easy recognizable. And what we did, which is, I forgot to say maybe, is that we changed the normal way of doing a church in France. Normally in France you have a landscape, you have the church, you have the cross.
The cross on the top of the building.
Cross and
in our case, we put the cross there.
Down.
On the ground floor with in a disc of water, yeah. And you see it there.
Here you have the bell, and the bell you can see it in the water when you are in the
we have
towers,
calculated it was very precise
When you are in
as a
the towers-
reflection from the tower when you are at the 30th floor of the Fiat Tower. You
we
can-
inverse the model.
Yes.
Normally it's like that and the church, and we did with the towers, the church like, and the signs here, and we see that from the towers. And we make attention also to be quite different from the kind of building all around. They are glass building. We make, comment on dit le cuivre?
Copper.
A copper building, no glass, not to be assimilated to the towers. And we choose a copper which, with the time passing, would become old. And inside of the church, you have the same copper, but which is, comment? Polished, yes, and
No, stabilized. Yes.
stabilized, so that it's ever gold vision, so that you have the relationship between the temporel et intemporel. You must tell us.
Eternity and the
Please.
world.
It's okay?
I
It's
see,
okay.
okay.
It's okay. So now we're going to present you our big work in
Lille.
In Lille. We finished that building 1 year ago, but we worked in that building for 7 or 8 years. I forgot a lot of time of our little life.
We are in Lille. Lille, it's a city of north of France, and we are just in the middle of the city. You have the existing building there, the place, and there it's a building of the same period, which is the prefecture, a sort of city hall, yes. And this building was built at the end of the 19th century. And at the beginning, the building was bigger, and they just realized half of the size plane of the original scheme, because they have problem of money. And at the beginning, the building must be a double like that, 2 squares, and they need space. And in the 30s, the courtyard there was topped with a glass roof, and in the 70s they built a new building between the 2 south pavilions there. And when we arrived, the building was completely filled up, and the first thing we want to do, it was to restore the normality of the existing building. And another thing we want to do, it was to open the museum on the city, to recreate, in fact, the relation of the museum with its city. And it's the reason why we do an extension. It corresponds also with a program with new services, of course. But we do an extension at the back of the lot. As you open a drawer, we put the extension at the top to restore, in fact, through the ancient building, all the qualities of this building. It means all the perspectives, all the in-depth views of the ancient building. Next. You see the existing building. It's a classical Beaux Arts composition of the end of the 19th century. Next. And this is the extension. And the extension for us was the idea to to create a relation between past and present. And you can see on this picture, in fact, the way how the ancient building registers on the new building. You have also the idea to create a sort of painting, a big painting in the city. All the building is a picture which talk about past with the ghostly presence of the ancient building. The picture talks about also painting with the gold monochromes on the red background or in this building. And it talks about presence with the inscription of the moving clouds, of the cars running around the site, with the people in the building, with the people using the building. Next.
Which is what is very, what you must understand is, can you go on? Is before that facade was closed by the extension, the ancient extension. We demolished that extension and we pushed the bâtiment further away so that the place, the free place which was behind the building came into the building. This entre-deux, how would you say? This in between, this void, which becomes the most important thing now, because which interests us much in that museum, much more than that building or that building, is the relationship between the two buildings au travers the void, through the void. Thank you. Next.
You see now how the light comes in the building. In fact, in the 30s, there is a big staircase.
No,
no.
Make it
in the
clear.
middle. And you can imagine between the two pavilions there is a building built in the 80s, which blocked, in fact, all this part of the building. It was completely black in this building.
What interested us also much in this building was the way people could enjoy coming to the museum. We asked the mayor if it was possible to make all the ground floor in free access so that people can cross the museum from one end to the other one, and the museum can become a place in the city to stay. They accepted to do that, so that it's like today, for instance, this building, which is a very rare, unusual, because always when you come in the museum, you pay at the entrance, and here you don't pay, you pay after if you want to pay.
And one thing important also was the idea to have in this ancient building, in this classical museum, to have a link with the present. And we demand to contemporary artists to make intervention. One of these intervention is the cube there. It's a work of the Italian artist Giulio Paolini's, and we have also another intervention of Gaetano Pesce, the Italian, Americano-Italian architect, artist. And now you can come back. And one thing important also in this picture was the idea to preserve the void and just to have void and light, natural light. Next. Yes, we have a sphere ending in the middle. And you see how the city comes in the museum with the reflection. You don't know where is the limit of the extension.
And how the museum opens to the city itself.
And you have a reflection in this elevation. You have a reflection in the horizontal glass roof it's a glass roof which tops the exhibition, temporary exhibition room.
Yeah.
Next. Next.
This is the back of the same building. No.
No, no, no.
Attends, j'ai passé.
And once you see what I was saying a few minutes ago, it's how the people make, in fact, the picture, make the image of the elevation exists because of the viewer. Next. No, no. Up.
No, that's my fault because it's working again.
Next. You see the elevation, and it's in fact two layers. One, it's a glass wall with pattern mirrors on the glass, and at the back you have on the concrete wall gold monochromes on a red background. Next. And one thing important, you don't see any structure on this elevation. You see the people in the building.
What is interesting in this building is that people can interfere in the image. People coming, reflect in the mirror, and people have an image. The image exists because of people. If you have no people, there is no image. So it's an interesting relationship because between a viewer, and the image. It's a play on the regard. How will you say the regard? The look. It's.
Seeing, the
Mais non, pas
smile,
regard, Isabelle.
the gaze, the gaze.
Next.
And also people, which is in that extension, there are officers in the extension, people who enter in the building interferes also in the image. So there is a lot of interferences in the image.
The painting galleries. Next. The intervention of Gaetano Pesce. He realized two big candles in the entrance galleries. It's very huge. It's 7 meters diameter and 7 meter height.
You must know, in this building there is always a problem of scale. You must be very huge or you must be very little. Here Gaetano Pesce take the position of being very huge, and us to put light on the building, we put very little.
We use very small fiber optics to make artificial light for all the ground floor of the existing building. In these galleries too, and we are in the ceramic collection. Next.
This
The
is
same open.
We did realize in that museum the whole scenography, museography.
The atrium again, with the detail on the work of Paolini.
Ah, no more. Marche plus.
Non, mais laisse tomber. In the atrium, we have a cafe and we have also a library. The library is realized. No, don't. It is realized with a metal box. It's like the box of the bouquinist on the kid scene. You know, where if you. Yes. You can open the box, and when the bookstore is closed, you fermer, close.
It looks like a table.
Yes.
At a little scale.
Next. Now we are in the basement of the existing building where the Middle Age collection are located, and it's a medieval collection is located. It's a very rich collection, and the option on this collection was, for us it was impossible to fight with this kind of collection. It was too beautiful, too rich, and we do a scenography very simple, just in relation with the architecture of the existing architecture, and we preserve also here the void, and we put the artwork on a massive oak stand, and we just use a slide of color to create a transition between the stand and the artwork.
They are most religious objects, and we wanted to play the poverty and relationship with the
And you see how we repair the wall just with pieces of cement in the brick.
We were very poor to do that also. We had no more money. But it was the occasion to play that kind of collection, which à qui ça va, which is fit.
Next. Next. Now we continue to go down, and we arrive at the second level, which is the big. It's a big room under the open room you see between the existing and the new building, and it's a temporary exhibit room. And you see through the glass top the relation with the existing and the new building. And the particularity of this roof is a slope. It's just 1%, and it's also the size of the glass. It's 5.5 meters by 2 meters.
From outside, it looks like
it looks like a
like
lake,
a piece of water,
and it works also like a basin in a classical garden. Yes, a pool in a
and
classical
as we
garden.
put outside
Yes.
a little bit of water all around, people really think it's water because you hear the water.
And you see, no, can you come back?
Sorry.
And you see, in fact, it looks like very simple, this glass roof. It's just like beam with glass on top, and but in reality, of course, it's very complicated to realize this kind of things. But it's a way we like to use technique. For us, it's just a means serving a strategy of project. Now we are in the corridor of the extension, and you can see how it works with the glass wall, with the structure made of elliptic posts, but it's the posts are like mirrors. And what is interesting there, you have the real monochromes on the red background, and you have the virtual monochromes on the post with the reflection.
And
always the ambiguity is there, and in fact, this picture can be a sort of resume of the project. You have the reality and the mass of the existing building, and to this reality, to this mass, you have a sort of virtual vision with the extension. A detail. Next. See how the elevation is movable.
Yes, which is very beautiful in this building is that when clouds pass, when cars pass from the city, everything is printed in the facade, so it becomes something very attractive. You always are looking at the facade because it's always changing. If you have sun, if you don't have sun, if you have darkness, for example, like that, it becomes very dramatic with the reflection in the glass, in the floor glass. And also it changed
8
with...
o'clock. Next, at night.
So it's a game on reality and on fiction, on illusion also. It's a museum. Thank you.
Thank you.
Shall I hold it? Okay. The next speaker is Dominique Lyon of the firm of Pierre Dubesset and Dominic Leone. I first met Dominique at Frank Gehry's office, as I said, in 1983 or 1984. We were working on a competition which we lost. It was a competition for the city of Nîmes in France, which is won by one of those British guys, I forget which. Dominique wanted very much to work with Frank, and he actually proceeded to. And now we fast forward many years, and he has a varied practice that includes a building for the newspaper Le Monde, a media center for the city of Orléans, and a library for the city of Troyes, which is now under construction. And if that wasn't enough, he's also writing a book. He tells me about Le Corbusier. And so I now give you Dominique Lyon.
Hello. Oops. That's nice. Well, I hope you're not too tired. First, I'm going to show you buildings and competitions, and how do I change? I'm going to show you first a competition that we made and tell a story about this competition. And maybe I will talk about how we work. If you are too tired, if you feel it's too abstract or theoric, just let me know and I can stop. No problem, really, with me. So the first thing is, how does it work? It is the first picture. I don't think it's the first picture, but that's all right. Maybe this one. One day we were building Le Monde, which is a newspaper, the headquarters of Le Monde, and we were invited to do a competition in Paris for the French pavilion in the Universal exhibit of Seville 92. So the subject was the French pavilion for the Universal exhibit of Seville in 1992. The subject, the theme of the show, the exhibit was discovery. Discovery of America, but it was the 500th anniversary by Columbus, and discovery of space. So it's a very large subject. It's non-specific. It doesn't mean anything. But our job is to take everything seriously. So we made a project that told about French, that told about Seville, that told about discovery, and that told about Columbus and the astronauts. There is no other ways. We don't have ideas about architecture before the subject comes. So what did we say, in short? We said that in French culture, there's something very specific that goes to the individual. We are a small country, but we don't have desert is what you eat, desert. We don't have desert. The landscape is human. We have a culture. We pay attention to books, production of the spirit. We pay attention to the most basic things that regard the body, the way we dress, the way we eat. We are supposed to be good at this. So the human scale is very important for French people. Now, about Spain and Seville. What is about Spain and Seville? Sun, bulls, love that ends very badly, but crime, etc. There is something very physical about Seville and Spanish people. They are proud and they kill the bull, and then they have this fight. They are very proud. Then what? Columbus. What did Columbus do? He traveled and he discovered America. What is important in America? They are not the landscape. Europe was still full of landscapes, big landscapes. There were big jungles all over Europe. What was important in America were the Indians, the Native Americans. They were human. They were important because people said, oh, are they human? Are they not? Do they have a soul? Do they not have a soul? The human dimension was very important in the discovery of America. What is important now in the discovery of space? The astronaut. Why do we put astronauts in little capsules? Why do we do that? They are useless. Why do we send the first object out of our system solar where there is a little disk where our image is engraved and where there is a message for other human beings? So in the discovery of space, the technology is not important. The most incredible part of this is we want to go beyond our frontiers. So the human dimensions were very important. And we choose, as you understand, to express the body condition, our humanity. So we decided to express this with one tool, the wind. Why the wind? It's easy to understand. In many stories, to create life, some god takes some mud and blow. So that makes life. This building, maybe we see the next one? Maybe. Yeah. This building was made out of fabric, nylon. It worked with wind. That is, we took wind on top of the building, and there were like veins in the building, veins that carried the wind through these sails. I'll show you how it worked. It worked in wind tunnel. It was very strange. We made big models. There are it's an envelope of nylon. So the building, people would get in the building without door. They would be greeted inside a big rez-de-chaussée, ground floor. And the building would move very slowly. The site was flat, and the wind was coming in one direction. So the building would move very slightly with a very small wind. And then with more wind, it will beat like this. And with more wind, it will beat like a heart would beat. And you could see in the building, in the wind tunnel test, that you could see the wind flow inside this big facade. The representation of life comes by the wind, as I said, but comes by the circulation of the blood. And I think this body, this building was, there was always something circulated inside. Inside, oh, that's terrible. Okay. Inside, there's one facade that is out. Inside, very quickly. The wind, 3 helicopters would give wind, turning. The wind is important, it's very hot climate. It's important to build, it was important to build all this building in fabric. We will build this building very quickly out of posts and girders of metal very approximatively, and then we would just dress it. There was a big, well, anyway, no. So this is complicated. This is, we took the wind up, it went in wind shaft in this thing here. Here you have springs and another spring, so the dynamic of the wind would make the building move. Here, you see the veins, and here are little pockets. So the wind came from the outside, in the pockets like a sail. Here, this moved with a very slight wind, and with a very slight wind too, the hair goes like this in the pocket. Even with an incoming wind, the thing will keep popping out, and it was very strange. The best thing about it is that the big problem of this kind of building, universal exhibition building, nobody never knows what to do after. This building was destroyed itself. It was like a parachute. If you keep a parachute on the sun, it will burn itself. So this building died. It burned itself. And the skeleton was left. So we can reuse a skeleton or bury it if you want. So that is a story about this building. Maybe there's another one. Oh, yes. And at the upper level, there were these things that would open and follow the course of the sun. Here, and everything is fabric, because everything will be built very quickly, very cheaply, and they would do that. Now, you stop me if you're tired. Why do I tell you this story? Because it's to fill a void, to fill a silence. I need to talk and to argue. I think modernity, our time, creates this void, and we are in a big void. The void is 95% of the buildings that are made now that is not architecture. They are culturally inexistent. This creates a big void. Most of the buildings that are culturally void, they are also technically inexistent. To get to this point, modernity went through our world, modernity, it's our time, went through major changes. And these changes are, to me, changes the role of architects and the way it can influence the society. Architecture now is very fragile. As I said, it has not always been the case. In the case of modernity, that is the beginning of the century, and after the war, when modernity became the international style, modernity built a very strong cultural field. This cultural field was, there was an easy flow between this cultural field and people that made the world, that is the politics, the big money, and I would say social goals. This easy flow during the Second World War built most of the American landscape, and there were great buildings following this easy flow. The world asked for new concepts and new shapes, and modern architecture gave these shapes and concepts. A mass production world was going to take shape, a very big world. And architecture had its low, and architecture was mainstream. Now, as you know, there is no more mainstream. All these linear things had exploded, or rather it had imploded, because Nobody has seen it explode. There is no mainstream anymore, and there is no more major cultural frame, no definite cultural frame. That means three things. Power, politics, money does not need architecture to take shape. For instance, Microsoft, Sony, doesn't care about architecture. Their buildings, headquarters are no architecture. A more bizarre thing, the MoMA in New York, that deal with art and culture, has been built in the beginning of the century by a modern architect, and the extension now is done by a corporate architect. The MoMA is not interested in cultural, in a frame for architecture. The thing that it means is that between architecture and what makes the world modern, actual, that means the electronic, Microsoft, Sony, all the things, there is no more relation. We cannot rely on this. Now, the other thing, when 5% of the architects, compared to the 95% that is not architecture, when the 5% architecture work, they work with their own cultural frame. They have to build their own cultural frame with their own personal value. So it's very difficult to grasp architecture, as you know, for it is rare. It takes many different forms, and its value is very difficult to ascertain. So to be a critic of architecture is not really easy. Architecture is a complex issue, and the world that is going now deals with mass production, with mass medias, with big politics. And these people that are making and dealing with this world, making and taking profit with this world, don't like complex issues. They distrust complex issues. It's true in politics. In America, the Congress talked during months and months on a stupid issue when there are big and complex issues to tackle, to deal with. Architecture because we still need architecture now becomes more and more normative. Not to avoid complexity, it becomes normative. The norms are cultural norms. In America, your architecture is becoming normative, and this is very dangerous. The second thing is that when it becomes normative, you don't have to ask people what they think about architecture. You don't have to explain to people what architecture is. This is the void, and this void is very dangerous, and that's why in this void, it's dangerous even for democracy. And this is wrong because it does not give a good shape to our world. So for a long time, I thought this was very critical, and I was very concerned by this. Concerned by the fact that nobody spoke, that architecture was scarce, that the culture of architecture was nowhere. In fact, I'm always concerned by this, and I think it's a catastrophe, but it's all right, in fact. I think we can influence this. Because I think the 95% architecture production, very bad production, has cracks. The system has cracks. They are the 5%. So in the 5% remaining, we are free. We are totally free because still there is the same void. Nobody can talk about architecture. Nobody cares about architecture. And in this 5% we can make our architecture. We are free. So one thing now that we are free, do people want us to be free? I interpret the silence of people. I mean, nobody talks about architecture in the media. I interpret this silence as a carte blanche. Don't know if you understand this term. A carte blanche. So a kind of freedom, we don't care, but we want to see what you are able to do. And it's strange how the people that are in the polls, the people that are in the mass, the people that all this system is talking about and producing for, they can understand and practice very incredible building like Centre Beaubourg in Paris, like Institut du Monde Arabe, the Arab Institute, like the Bilbao Center, in the Getty Center in Guggenheim Center, sorry, in Bilbao. So there is a demand, there is a curiosity for this 5%. And I like this idea that people don't have ideas about architecture, but are waiting. I like the idea of the carte blanche. Now, there's my point. If we are free, if we have this freedom, we must keep architecture free. That is first thing. We must keep this void. To fill this void, we must give reasons. We must give arguments. These arguments, to relate with democracy in France or in Europe, we have the chance to present them in competitions to a jury. You can tell any story that you want. You can build for France an island building. There is a jury. The jury chooses. You have to argue that you're able to build stories about architecture, because in the cultural void, that is, your arguments has to be complete, and they are becoming stories. They are not only arguments, this and this, they have to make a whole story. So our freedom is acceptable in democracy because there is competition. Our arguments must be shared. Second point, the 5% that we are dealing with compels us to be radical. If we want to make standpoints, we want to exist, if we want to counterbalance the 95%, we have to be radical. There is no other way. I will finish. And saying that, to me, it is important that not to project my ideas about architecture on the world, but to let the world happen, to let things happen and to arrange these things. I think architecture does not exist before the conditions of architecture are set. The conditions of architecture are always the same, as you know, a site, a program, a client, money. Architecture must be kept floating. It must be a pure mental thing till the moment it takes its form. Of course, the subjects are always the same, but it's a question of viewpoint. In a world where everything is looking alike, there is an urge to look very precisely at the thing. If you take a fly is a stupid animal. If you look carefully at the fly, you'll see how the wing is attached to the body, and how the wing takes a deformation during the fly of the flight, how the body reacts structurally, how the brain of the fly accepts all this movement in the three-dimensional world. So the fly begins to be a world by itself, if you know how to look at it. And I think my work in architecture is looking at the fly. So that's all about the thing. Now I'll show you some project in an order that I don't remember. So this is Le Monde. So I'll tell you stories about some building, some not. Le Monde. Le Monde is a newspaper. It's a major newspaper in France. It's an institution. It's a very important politically and culturally a newspaper. So they were moving. And they were moving in a very narrow street with very strange a piece of land that goes from one facade and another facade with, in the middle, this big thing. So we said that for some reason, Le Monde has no picture, only text. It always refused representation, picture. So our building is very abstract. You can take it like this, or like this, or left or right. There's no left, no right, no up, no down. You can turn it in anything. Second thing, it has to, as Le Monde is an institution, it has to show this dimension, a big dimension, bigger than the street. The street in Paris, as you know, you have the facade that is straight, and then you have setbacks. You see in this facade here, you have setbacks. To give the maximum dimension to this building, the maximum stature, we arrange that there is no hierarchy. It's like a one movement, and there is no hierarchy between a facade and a setback. It's one same movement that goes from the bottom to the end. It's a curve, like this. To play with, it seems flat to me. It's curved, anyway. Still. So it makes something quite monumental. The rest is, Le Monde is just written on it. So, what happens with it is, inside we wanted to express the idea of a content. The Le Monde presents itself like, because there are no pictures, like an intellectual newspaper. So the most important thing for them is the content, the idea, the concept. So we deal with this by using light. We told them, that was in 1985, that the light was a material by itself. Now it seems a little bit easy to say that, but in front of a jury, private jury, it was very difficult. So at night, all the lobby becomes blue. It contains a light, which is blue. So here, and blue on the ground. There's a big escalator, so you come directly in the core of the building without taking an elevator. There's something more ceremonial about it. And you arrive in a big patio, with a glass floor. This is the main lobby. You have this big curve that is like a piece of furniture. It's very long, where they sell newspapers, etc. You have these big containers on the right that are containers for articles and things like that. See, the walls are made of tiny piece of glass, and they reflect light, like you see on, these bands of lights on firemen, policemen, etc. People working on it. So it's glowing. The floor is made of broken glass, and you'll see the floor upstairs. So the glass floor, the elevator, the big thing, curved graphic thing. Here, the three containers. Here's the glass floors. At night it's very beautiful because the light comes from this patio, hanging patio, and it's green with the blue. It's not quite nice. Okay, this is Le Monde and a glass roof on the patio. Everything is giving light on each face of 6 faces of the patio, which is a cube. Oh, this is a project that's going to be built. We change. It's not the same thing. This is in north of Paris. It's very close to the airport. It's a very rural place, surprisingly enough. And they ask us to build houses, social housing houses that fit in the architectural landscape of this village, with a little church, big stone walls, huge roofs. And they have the huge farms, barns, etc. in this thing. So we said we'll take the shape of the regular shape of the buildings, and we'll make it as big as possible. The social housing is small, and the houses and the barn in the country are big. So the intervention in this barn are making things bigger to fit. So 2 things. Now there are 4 apartments. That there were 2 at this time. With like garage on each side. So it is a structure, steel structure, corrugated metal, inside a concrete structure and void all over. So you can see through the building by big openings like this. See, this is a facade, and this is corrugated metal, and at what point PVC. You know what PVC? Plastic, transparent. It becomes transparent and it's cut like, you know, we did that. What are you supposed to? This is getting built. Okay, that's other facade. Okay, something else? No? I don't know. Oh, maybe I go fast. This is Jussieu. Jussieu is we'll have buildings after that. Jussieu is a project that Rem Koolhaas built. It was a library. It is in terrific university that you see here, where I think 40,000 students are supposed to study. In fact, it's a terrific place. It was a place raised, it's 5 meters higher than the street of Paris. There are pilotis, and there's this grid on pilotis. And the only big structure is for the administration. So conceptually, it's a nightmare. But there's an idea that is quite interesting in it. It's, for us, always a story. It's the question of the ideal city. It is cité idéale. An ideal city is always suspended. It's for intellectuals, scientists, and it's raised above the level of the street, and it's an abstract grid. Its abstraction is for the mind. So to me, it's a failure, but for many reasons. But the idea, and to make an addition for this, is to restore the idea of ideal city. So the libraries, there were two libraries, one for science and one for philosophy and literature, etc. And they are both on one another. And you'll see there's a sense of floating thing and something hanging. I want to say something. What is this? This is, see. So one library is on top of another, but the thing here, I'll show you more precisely. See, one library, a second library. This is a second library, but it's not a roof. It's itself, the roof itself, it's a library. And there is a sense of that this shape here, this is part of a library too, which is this part. This is very big here. That the spaces are like clouds. I mean, they are ground floor, upper floor, but they are perforated. The space flow between. So this is a library. Here, you come from above. There are 8 meters, I think, between this point and this point. You come in the library from above. So you see the library from above. All the people reading all the books. A sense of accumulation that is very interesting. The rest, you see it from below this other library, like a big cloud with a space going like this. You'll see. Here, you enter this, you see the library. These are the reading room with glass walls, iridescent. Can you understand this? This is first library. You enter here. You see everything on your feet, like God looking at the Cité Idéale, an angel, I would say. And or somebody on earth looking at a floating city. All right, yeah. This is the ground floor. This is the upper floor. This is this part, which is in the ceiling. It's a big room. Here is a section. You see people, this big trumpet. It's like a trumpet. Okay. They are flat libraries. Here are views from the inside. Ground floor, this little ceiling sticking to the ceiling, the upper floor, and the roof. And these things, this here is here. It connects, like a trumpet, you know. So the ceiling is not a ceiling. Well, yes, in fact, this geometry, the complexity of this geometry is to redeem the greed. The greed is fatality. This complexity of space is something that will save the complexity. Is this clear? It has to do with forgiveness, etc. This is another building. I like this building very much. It's the first competition that we won. Well, anyway, this is a library. This is an existing building, of course, this ugly building. And they asked us to build a library in this building, which is very badly built. So you have to be very optimistic, overly optimistic. The only quality of this building was its inner space. It was just a big space. So in the big space, we put a big object, like this is a big space to me. And if I want to fill it up, I'll put a plane, a big plane that will go from here to here. And we filled it with this thing, which is like, how would I say, a bidet. You know. Here it comes. See? There's like an animal, it's like a shell and a huge animal that's got to jump like this. It's an oversized object. It's not a piano. It's in plastic, really, like a wash basin. It's pop. It's oversized. And it's grainy surface, like oversized, thing. Here. This is the thing. So it's a reading room upstairs, of course. Okay? This is the existing space. This is green, plastic, and this is light. This is pop. This is a library. This is a very complex story. It's an addition library. I'll show you this because all the drawings are in black and white. In every French competition, we don't have the right to put colors. It is to help neo-Corbusian architects, of course. It's easy, neo-Corbusian architecture is very easy to express in black and white. This architecture is, when it's yellow, it's very difficult. So it was an addition of this building. This building is very interesting. It's in a campus in Dijon, built by the same architect. And the same architect began to make Beaux Arts building, where the viewer is in the axis, symmetry, etc. And then he began to make more complex buildings like this one, which are a little bit cubist. One functionalist and cubist. One function, one shape, one material. So our addition is one function, one shape, one material. The problem is, this is stone. We are in Dijon. The stone of Dijon in Bourgogne is yellow. And there's a moutarde de Dijon, which is yellow too. You know, Dijon mustard. So the project is yellow. But the thing is, this box is one object, and there has to be an ambiguity in the material. It's yellow like the stone. It's like a marble, like this. Marble, the material. Ooh, it's dark. See, here. And this was the first project saying that being in a... we studied a lot of libraries. I'm going to show you buildings of libraries now. Being in a library is something very interesting. And the most interesting thing about library is being lost. And lost, and the pleasure that you have in libraries are by the number. The number of documents that are available and the number of people that are studying. It is very positive. And it's important to be in a library and to feel that you are here and you can feel the space here. So in this building, 1 floor, 2 floor, and a ground floor, there was these big slots with big glass walls like this. And you can see, and the floors does not connect to the facade. So you have the sense of floating things. You see the building like this, but you see like this too, vertically. And ooh, it's supposed to be flat. This is the facade. See, these are the floor. This is the structure. When you are somewhere, there's this big thing happening, and you feel that it's happening on a larger scale than you. Maybe we'll see that. I like this facade very much, in fact. This is glass. Sorry to tell you that. Here. the floor, glass floor connecting to the facade, and these are the facade. So you see you are part of a bigger thing. We will work on this concept. So this is built. This is in Orléans. This is a library, a médiathèque, as they say. A médiathèque is here. Here you have a big boulevard. Here is a historical city. Here is a church. This is a new city. It was politically very important that the mayor, newly elected, choose to, and the old library was, there was a cathedral, and the old library close to the cathedral. And culture was linked to history. And it was very important that here the mayor says, this is a new part outside the boulevard to put the new center of the town. We'll put the new media center. We call it Médiathèque. It was very important. It's very strange. You see the boulevard. There is perspective like this, and there is a continuation of the boulevard. It's broken like this. You'll see why. Because it's the end of the perspective first, and then it is a continuation of the boulevard too. I'll go back. I'll show you something. So what we did is this thing. This is what we call chaos. I don't know if it's chaotic, but it's not very nice. We have a big church that is quite ugly. We have a building here that is quite common. And we wanted to achieve a number of goals. First, to be monumental, to assume the perspective. Perspective, cultural building, big political standpoint, we have to tackle with a monument issue. So to be monumental, it's very easy. We made a background like this. This is the background. And we put some big events like this. This. This is not nice. Should be put down. The thing is, this building becomes the focal point of a big mess. It has to deal with the complexity and the richness of this church, however ugly. But people like it because they can see very deeply in the building. It's not a facade, a glass facade. There's something happening. There are deepness in the facade. So our facade is a little bit delicate. Yeah, like lace, a little bit overly delicate, of course. And now, we'll see things, and I'll tell you what's happening inside. This was to be monumental and to be rich enough to compete with this, and not to take the same vocabulary than this. So this is it. That's the reading room, kids, landing room, the entrance, exposition. I don't know. This building has no top, no bottom. You could put it down, or it has no. You can put in any direction. It will be the same. The photograph is false because this is the same thing than this, which doesn't seem, in fact. So it changes. I like this view, always. It's very rude, complex. This is aluminum. This is the reading room. This is the books, big window, the entrance, the lace. Here, same thing, the landing room, the little people. It looks like a chateau fort, This is the entrance. You'll see the metal is perforated, so it let the light in. Now, it's on reverse, but that's all right. Now, what was the idea inside the building? It's important. I was talking to a student 1 hour ago. It's based on circulation. I think the project, the goal, the cultural project of a médiathèque is to put different crowds together. People that go to listen to hard rock music, and people that go to listen to classical music. People that come to read cartoons, and people that come to read Socrates. And in a médiathèque, I think there is a difference between Socrates and a comic book. There is it's not promenade. There is a circulation that goes from bottom to up. There is a hierarchy. So for the people to circulate in the building, each part of the program is a piece. The reading room is a piece. The room for the kids is a piece. The room for the magazine is a piece. This is the landing room. It's a piece. Each piece has the colors, its own orientation, its own material. Each piece has a very special form. Each of the pieces are interlocked in a very complex geometry, like an engine. And each piece, they are interlocked dynamically. You see, this round thing will go a little bit. Now, so this is good. This is a cafeteria. This is a lighting thing. This is a reception desk. This is a thing. Okay. And you can see, well, hardly here, the bulging part of the reading room. So when you are in one piece, you feel the presence of the next piece. So there's this idea of you are somewhere, you have to go somewhere to elevate yourself in a mediathèque. See, this is. And one piece is this staircase, which is totally orange, that goes whoop, like this. So you get out of the stair like this, and you are in a corridor. Here is a work of art of an English artist called Victor Bergin. It's a video, very clever video. And this is the main reading room with this big tarpaulin, just screwed on the wall, no money. And this is a big room. And a big reading room is, what do you want when you read? You want quietness. But you don't want blankness. You want something to happen. And I think the best thing, we thought about what could happen in a reading room. What do you want? I think you want a fire that makes no noise. You know, these electric fires that make this thing like that. Or you want an aquarium, you know, like a very silent movement like this. Here you have the street, because they have oh, this is, it's made of fabric, all this. Here you see, these are the boulevard. So you see constantly flowing the cars, and you hear no noise. It's very strange. There's a huge distance. It was important from inside the building to see outside the building and the city. And it's like a fire. It's very quieting. So this is a reading room. It's all made of fabric, as I told you, plastic. This is plastic on the wall. This is plastic. And it's monochrome green. Glass shelves. This is the kids, etc. And it's finished. No, here. This is a cathedral. Nice build. It's ugly, in fact. This is a library. It's, I think, the last project. This is a library we are building in Troyes, actually. Troyes is in the east of France, approximately the same distance as Orléans from Paris, and exactly the same location. A boulevard and the building. The building is part of a big existing building here that was first a train station, then a college, then now what they say, a cultural center. This is convention center, it's bad, and this is music center, music school, which is ugly. The renovation is terrible. So they decide to put an addition, which is the library. And we say, okay, we make the library exactly as if it was a growing part of this. The fun thing about this, you have the boulevard like this. This thing, that the most important road is here, exactly like Orléans. And this is strange. This could be a facade, a recessed facade from the boulevard, but this is strange. And what is this? This is McDonald's. This is a McDonald's, neoclassical McDonald's building, and it's a Mac Drive. Here is a parking of the McDonald's. So, strange, very strange. So, we decided not to make a facade on this building, to let the view from here go from here. From here to here, you have 100 meters, 330 feet. So the view, everything is made to be monumental from here, so we can erase this. There's no facade, not to give importance to this space. If you could make it on focus, because it's a complex thing. Oh, good, thank you. Here's a building. So it looks like things have been falling apart. Everything is hazy. The geometry is always. There's one floor, ground floor, and one floor for lecture. In the ground floor, you have a huge room that is 60 meters long, where you have books, old books. That's what they wanted. In a usual library, they don't show books. The books are on shelves that high. Here, they wanted to show an old room bookshelf. So it's quite monumental, and it has to have the size of a church or, I don't know, a building, an historical building. It's here. So now, in the plan, everything has to be organized following this very important historical thing. And to counterbalance this, we have a series of stripes, one being a work of art that will be made by Lawrence Wiener, an American artist, that will be text. So to make this something with no form, we don't want form here, we don't want shapes. We use a geometry that is always changing, we use text, and we use transparency. So, this, you saw the roof that goes like this. Can you put it on focus? Thank you. The big room, here a storage room, a big stair. Everything is big. I say big, but it's really big. This text runs on 65 meters, kids, a fake facade, and the flooring ceiling. And here the text that is the classification of the book on the reading room floor. This is a ground floor, the big room with the books, storage, one part of the storage, a staircase that goes to a big corridor where the text, Laurence Wiener text begins here, does plunk. Kids, this form helps to see the depth, you know, chuk, chuk, chuk. And this is the upper floor. This is a facade that goes like this in every direction, you'll see. This is a section. The big room that I told you, the reading rooms. The big room, the reading rooms, and the ceiling. Oh, here is a big reading room. A ramp that goes like this for exhibition part. The storage, the stair. And this facade that is like this. See, this is a model, office model. Now I'll show you. Here. The existing building. The screen, what we call screen facade, which is blue. The letters. The rear part, which is like this, with orange strings, aluminum, that will make it flow. This is the kid mezzanine, as you saw, the blue. The text here, the reading room upstairs, and the ceiling. You see the ceiling that goes like this. So transparent. The geometry is, you lose your grounds. This is a big facade. This pattern is not good. We are trying to find a pattern, but it's not that good. Transparency. The inside, well, it's a little bit. The storage, stair. That's from here to here, there are 30 meters. It's big. The kids, you see here. Under the mezzanine of the kid that does like this. The big corridor with a work of art. The blue facade here. And upstairs. From here to here, there are something like 60 meters. It's hard to tell. Now, I think this is, I would like to show you 4 more images very quickly. They are a library. They are what I think about a library. This might interest you. It's in Toulouse. This campus has been made by Candilis. You know, Candilis, there are the réseau, that is the pattern, the network architecture. See, this is a campus. This is a library. They ask us to be the library. So it's the same plan. No shape. We always take the whole site. No shape, just patios. I told you the importance of library is accumulation to me. Accumulation of data and accumulation of people. Can you make the focus, please? It's supposed to be on focus, but 3 floors. Each floor is divided by 12 by 12 meters room. Each has these little dots. So the perception of the library, you cannot, the more you go in the library, the more there is to see. Here you see 3 floors, you see the big room, you see the dot. This is the entrance. Here's the entrance. There's a big parking in front. This is the north facade. This is a shading device. This is the ground. So it's very simple plan with all the same intervention on the glass. So this is the inside where you lose ground, in fact. The stair. A reading room. And as you get closer here, it's a library for literature, and some of them in literature from the south of France and Spain. And I thought that this, in fact, would be a dictionary. Each of these dots would carry a word of a language that would disappear. It was Aramean. So the text written, the translation, and phonetics, etc. Information on each of these dots. There are the shades here. And it's finished, I think. Yes? It is finished? Okay, it's finished. C'est pas toi, ça?